So another risk for next year, geopolitical and inflationary, right? We started out with one major geopolitical flashpoint, for lack of a better word, in 2023, and we ended with three, the third one being the Red Sea. So we have to watch geopolitical risks, and those geopolitical risks could potentially add to inflation. So let's talk about the inflation risk right now. Okay, and then let's talk about that first, and then I'll go to the next thing. You talk about the inflation risk. In the past, the risk has been, and let me rephrase that. The end of 2022 and during all of 2023, the risk had been that inflation wouldn't come down, and it did. Now, for everyone out there that's saying to themselves right now, yeah, inflation come down, how come I still can't make ends meet? Because when you see reports of inflation, okay, and I'm speaking specifically of for example, the core PCE in the US, the last reading was plus 3.2% year over year, okay? That's plus, okay, that's still up. When you say inflation came from 9% down to 4%, okay, that was from a 9% increase to a 4% increase. So net, that's a 13% increase over those two periods. So when you're seeing inflation, when people are telling you prices are lower, no, they are not. They're just up less than they were last time, but they're still up. The example I always use is if you go look at a car that's $30,000, okay, and you don't buy it, and then inflation rises 10%, and the next year you go look at it, it's $33,000. You're like, wow, I'm going to wait till inflation comes down. Now, the next time inflation is up 5%, okay? So now that car is $34,800, okay? It's still way higher than the $30,000 car you looked at 2 years ago, even though inflation has come down. And it's higher than it was the previous year, even though inflation has come down. Just because it didn't rise another 10% doesn't mean the price didn't rise. So inflation, the risk is now that it starts to accelerate. The rate of inflation starts to accelerate again. That's a very big risk. I'm not saying again that it's a probability, but it's a possibility. And when you're approaching things from a risk-first perspective, you're looking at possibilities. Okay, what could happen that could really hurt things? And something that could happen, I mentioned geopolitics. Geopolitics could get worse. When we talk about inflation, the geopolitical situation could add to inflation by ramping up commodity prices, constraining supply chains. And those could mean goods prices go higher and surprise markets by having the rate of change of inflation reverse higher rather than continue to go lower. That's probably one of my larger risks, okay, if I'm looking at risks for next year. And the reason I say it's a larger risk is because it's the one that people think is the least probable. So it's the one that causes the most surprise to markets.